Okay, I'm naked and I'm holding a wet kitten in a genuine German rayon chamois. And today we're talking about tattoos and other body modifications because, well, that's a topic Trisha Hirschberger wanted to talk about. So, yeah. Although as a side point, just so you know, kittens when they're young are very susceptible to temperature, particularly cold. So if you wash them, you should try not to wash them as much as possible. And if you have to wash them, as in the case of Nimbus here, you need to keep a hold of that kitten, keep them warm with your body heat until they're nice and dry. Unfortunately, my little gal here had a flea last night, so if there's a flea, there's another flea. So obviously she needed a good washing, and dish soap is actually the best thing for that, because the suds of dish soap will suffocate the fleas. But I digress. So here's the thing. I was raised Jewish. And if you know anything about Jews, you would be familiar with the scandal after World War II, where there were Jewish cemeteries that refused to accept the bodies of sufferers of the Nazi regime who had been tattooed. You know, common thing in World War II, many Jews had numbers tattooed on them. And because they marked their bodies, despite the fact that they had no control over that, there were certain Jews that felt that they were tainted and unfit for entombment in a traditional cemetery. It's okay, Nimbus. You just snuggle up next to me. You'll be nice and warm. Yes, they lose heat through the ears. So, where does this come from? It actually comes from a passage in Leviticus that says that we are not to scar or mark ourselves in the name of the dead. And, you know, this over time became we're not to scar or mark ourselves at all. Now, do I believe in that? No, not really. I think if you want to get a tattoo, go get a tattoo, unless you want to consider yourself devoutly Jewish. But I will say that my sister went out there and got herself a tattoo of her dead boyfriend. He was already dead when she got the tattoo, got his name printed on her leg, or her foot rather. And you know, what eventually happened with that is that the dead boyfriend's brother showed up at my house and wanted to talk to my sister and said, "Why don't you come visit my mother anymore? We miss you." Which seemed rather sweet, despite the fact that, you know, the boyfriend had been dead for some years. And then it was on the news that this brother to the dead boyfriend had gone crazy, murdered his boss's wife, and their young daughter. So every time my sister looks at her foot, she gets to remember the fact that the soon-to-be murderer would be coming to our house. Yes, I'm glad my sister doesn't live with me any longer. But just remember, the thing about tattoos is they are semi-permanent. They're not completely permanent. You can get them removed. But you are making a permanent change, or a really hard to take back change in your life. This is not something you should ever do lightly. And, you know, look, I personally don't believe I'm ever going to get a tattoo. I know what I would get if I got a tattoo. I would get the symbol I read on all my artwork, which is the man alone. A human figure suspended in a tongue of fire. That's, you know, that's just who I am. But understand something here. Now, for 4 years of my life, I worked with the homeless. I was recently terminated. And tattoos often represent choices people have made, Not choices they currently make about themselves, but choices people have made. I remember back in the 90s, I worked with a man who was a neo-Nazi at one time. He was in his 40s, he'd been to prison, had a swastika on his arm. Never gave me any trouble, seemed to be the nicest guy in the world. Never gave any of the guards that worked with him who were of race any trouble. Very nice fellow. I never asked him about the tattoos. I never wanted to know. It was none of my business. So that's one of those things, is that when you get a tattoo, you are making a choice. A choice that says who you are at that time. Possibly not a choice that will always reflect you. So when I look at someone with tattoos, I examine the fact that these are choices they have made, not necessarily depictions of who they are. This is very important because, you know, I work with a lot of young people, as young as 18, who were heavily tattooed and had a lot of things saying on them, and it's like, well, okay, well, this is who you were, it may be who you are. I'm going to make the conscious decision not to judge anyone by their body art. But you know, I had a client that had a very interesting tattoo. I'm not sure I should really talk about exactly what it was, but people were saying because he had this tattoo, he should be removed from our program. You know, because he had made this choice to ink himself in a certain way. What it was that it was a hateful symbol that had been crossed out. And underneath, I'm paraphrasing, underneath it said, "Love thy neighbor." Didn't say exactly that, but it said a lot about his heritage and the fact that he believed that people of his nature should love their neighbors. So you just have to understand that people may judge you by your tattoos. They may judge you without thinking. And a tattoo is a choice you make about yourself. Okay, you know, they say don't judge people by their appearance. That means don't judge me by the fact that I am a Caucasian, I have some Slavic and some Irish ancestry in me, possibly some German. Don't judge me by the fact that I'm large, because that just may be an aspect of my environment or my birth, and possibly don't even judge me if my clothes are old and worn. Although at the moment I'm naked. I guess if I make the choice to go naked, you might be able to make a few assumptions about that. But how do we consider people? Well, by the choices they make, by who they choose to be. It was one of the interesting things. I was doing research for a film script at one point, and I believe it said that when a person accepts Jesus, it's a Christian belief, when a person accepts Jesus, their spirit is renewed, but their soul is not. And then I was doing this specifically for research into what is a soul. And where this comes from is that the human body, or a human being, is in possession of three things. The body, the soul, and the spirit. And the original, I believe it's Latin for soul, is psyche, or mind. So it's the body, the mind, and the spirit. And what you do to your body affects your mind. So you just do understand that. It's a very interesting way to look at things, but I had to understand the lore. It's one of those things when you write a film script, have a definite lore and have it make sense. And incidentally, in the Bible, soul almost exclusively refers to living people. Living souls were carried across the water. Soul is a reference generally to a living person, just so you'll know that. So when we alter our bodies, we are in a way altering our soul, not necessarily our spirit. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily believe this. You know, I'm not terribly religious. I do the research. I want to be respectful of people's beliefs. So just understand that if you are altering your body, you are altering your substance. And it is an alteration that impacts both the mind and the body. I wouldn't take it lightly. Some people do. And just remember that often tattoos fade. They don't always look good with age. So bear that one in mind. Yeah. Anyway, so now here's me getting on my soapbox. If anyone in the Los Angeles area wants a kitten, look, I just lost my job. I've got 6 kittens. 2 of them I have definite homes for. 4 of them are still up in the air here. I need help. So if you could, like and share this video. If you live in Los Angeles or anywhere near that area, maybe go to your church and ask if anybody would like an addition to their family. Ask if anyone wants a cuddly little ball of joy like Nimbus here. I'm assuming you could change her name because cats don't care. Look, she has a purple collar. See that? It's a purple collar. Yes. I love you, Nimbus. I do. I'd keep you if I could, but I can't. Yes. So like I say, I'm Richard Neal, and I hope you find peace within your spirit and love within your soul.